When I got to the jail, it was a different situation because usually, they only have one vehicle in there at a time and they only allow one person in there at a time. But when I got there was like 3 other vehicles back there, at least 5 or 6 officers and a sheriff, and they had pulled some guy out of the car. And they were searching him. He was shaking his shirt. You'll see him shaking his shirt out and different things that you don't normally do during a search. Then they took his stuff in a crate and kind of just threw it up in the wall like that with an abundance of like crates and things like that, which is odd. It's something that you never see before. So I got out. The sheriff comes and she grabs me out of the vehicle, and I was just like, you're disgusting. At this time, I'm aware that they know what's going on with me. They are aware of what's going on with me, and they were able to bribe them to kill me for the crime of not wanting to be a whore, not wanting, the negativity, and being ugly and fat, and I have a gap. And things like that. And so that's my crime. And so she comes and she's like, I'm on the wall, and while I'm on the wall, they're like searching me and making comments, and he goes, Jesus is his savior, and I go, the Father is my savior, Jesus' Father is my savior. And he said, what's that on the floor? And we looked down, and it was a needle on the floor. And I was like, bullshit, that's not even mine. I don't even smoke weed, so it ain't no way that that's my freaking needle. I don't do drugs. You can drug test me right now, and I don't have any drugs. Well, I'm not saying it is. Let's go. And they grab me, and they take me into isolation, and where they left me in there for 3 days. But before that, while I'm sitting there, they come in, the officer comes in, I'm in isolation, I hadn't been booked or processed or anything yet, and the officer comes in and goes, oh, you can't tell me God isn't real, she hasn't even been let out of isolation yet, and she's already OR'd. And so I was OR'd within the first 5 minutes of me being in jail. So the officers were sitting there, and they were like, it just seems sort of suspicious to me, that you're OR'd and you haven't been booked and different things like that. So they tried to change the OR, and they tried to add new charges onto me, and a lot of different things took place, and this criminal activity took place while I was incarcerated. I called the officer to the side, and I explained to him the truth about what happened. Like, hey, when I got here, I did have a piece of glass in my pocket, but I was OR'd because they mishandled me. And so they went and pulled the video up and watched the video, and he was like, oh no, this is some bullshit, like this whole video looks suspicious right here. He was like, why don't we get this lady OR'd and get her back to her puppy. So they did that, and then this is the 3rd day. I was in isolation for 3 days. No phone. I wasn't able to call anybody. I wasn't able to I wasn't booked or processed. I was just laying in the floor in this isolation tank for 3 whole days, just floating around in the jail, just there. And you will see them walking around, rubbing their nose, or their stomach or their chest, and different things like that. Their hair, their heads, letting you know, hey, I'm watching you too. I see you too. And so I'm just sitting there. They moved me from the isolation. They had OR'd me, reversed the OR, and OR'd me 3 times before I was let out of isolation. So I'm sitting, I go to the booking station where I'm finally booked. I was arrested on the 19th, and I was booked on the 21st. So I go over there. I hadn't had any other involvement with the police whatsoever, except for on the 19th when they arrested me, and the 21st when they threw me in the isolation tank. They at that time they booked me, said that I was under the assumption that I was being awarded. So I go in, I get booked and everything, but I'm just sitting here in the holding tank, and it's a lot of people coming in, and I'm laying on the floor, and they're kicking me, and doors opening up on me, and different things like that. The King of Wales has invested a lot of taxpayers' dollars into this whole illusion of a suffocating situation. I knock on the door. It was a setup, I guess, for me to do something crazy so that they could, take me back to isolation or something, or justify kidnapping me. I'm not sure. But I knocked on the door, and the same sheriff who thought to plant the needle on me, comes and gets me and says, "Oh, I'm going to get you your crate so that you can go up to a bed." And I'm like, "A bed? I've been OR'd. What are you talking about?" So the sheriff kept reversing my award. I would be award, and then the sheriff would reverse my award. She said, "No, you have to go to court and be arraigned." So I go with her up the stairs and down the hallway, and then the officer goes, "Oh, and for the information, I'm not arraigning you. I'm putting your arraignment off until tomorrow." Now, I'm going back here because I've been getting kicked on and all of this stuff, not because I done anything wrong or anything like that. So at that time, I have agoraphobia really bad, and so my agoraphobia is when I'm like in a situation and I can't get out of it. I can't find a solution for it. I have panic attacks, and so I started having a panic attack where I could breathe, but I could barely breathe, but I could breathe. And so I was asking them for like water and things like that. I need water. They was like, "No, come in this tank, come in this tank." And they was like, "Oh, go upstairs, go upstairs." And I couldn't go upstairs, so I sat at the bottom of the stairs because I couldn't make it up the stairs. And so they come in, like 10 officers come in, and they grabs me so hard, and I'm wheezing, struggling for air, and this officer goes to throw me down. And so I looked at him like, what? And so I pulled, in shock, and then he like conducts and stuff, because they have body cameras on and things like this at the time. So he takes me into the cell, and they throw me on this metal bed. And so I'm struggling for air. He throws me on this metal bed where I bang my knee really, really bad. The nurse comes in, and she's like, "Tanya," and I was like, "I need water." I asked him for water. And she took a paper towel full of bleaching ammonia, and she shoved it in my face. She just held it in my face. Bleaching ammonia in my face. And then it was stuck in my throat, so I had to, I barely had any air, so it took more of my air. I literally had no air at that time whatsoever. And so when I go to sit up, and I'm practicing traits that, I learned, like, you gotta breathe slow, and you gotta calm down. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to calm down and catch my air, and she kept putting this paper towel full of ammonia in my face. It's on the body cameras. It's on the cameras. It's bleaching ammonia. I got bottles full of this stuff, she says. So then they're all standing there, and then when I noticed that the officer did have the camera on, they go, "Oh, officer, you come over here with us." And he said, "No, I'm staying here." So they after she put the bleaching ammonia in my face, never gave me any water, anything to get any water with. I didn't, and so they left me in a cell, and I just kind of had to calm down and catch my breath. They called me up for arraignment. I go before the judge, and the judge awarded me again. I was awarded 4 times in just one arrest. Wrongful arrest. Wrongful mishandled arrest. And so he OR'd me. So after he ORs me, the guards are walking around saying things like, oh, do you want a mat so that you can get comfortable? And I was like, no, I'm ready to be released. I needed to get home to my dog because my dog was at home and she didn't have any food or water. And that was my main concern the whole time I was there. Just like, let me call and check on my dog. Let me call and make sure that I get my dog in a safe place. And they just would not let me use the phone. They didn't actually, they called and got Sunshine put in a pound on the day that I was released. So I'm sitting there and I'm just worried about Sunshine. But then my chest starts hurting, my chest is hurting, my throat is hurting, and my knee, my bone is literally popping out of my knee. And so I'm in pain, so I hit the emergency button and I tell them like, hey, I'm feeling chest pains, and they go, oh, okay, well, get your shit, it's time to go home. So they released me, and like I said, this guy, the King of Wales, you know, he's abusing his power. He has access to, you know, the judiciary system and the municipal system. And you'll see different videos where he's like walking around visiting the municipal system, where he's with the ambulance and the hospital, and then he'll go visit the police station, and he's seen with the sheriffs and different things like that. So he's actually like acting it out on a worldwide stage while they're actually doing these things to me in real life. So when I got out of jail, Sunshine was gone. I didn't know where she was, but she had been in here for days by herself. Because they were watching me, you know, on my camera, they knew when I was getting ready to get out. So before I got out, they took Sunshine. So I went to the hospital. I called the 911 to get an ambulance. Well, the fire truck got here first. And the fire truck was here probably about 30 minutes. And before the ambulance came, they kept saying they didn't have one available. Finally, one comes. So finally, an ambulance shows up. I go to UT Hospital. When I get to UT Hospital, soon as I'm rolling in the door, the sheriff is walking out of the door. As I'm sitting there waiting, they roll me back. The guy at the thing, he's like rubbing his nose. So the guy at the, you know, I know that, you know, it's influence here. They took that long to get here so that they could place these people inside of this hospital and create this scenario like what's been transpiring in my life the whole time. And what you see on TV today, if you go watch his channel, you'll see people saying, oh, I support him, he's a good person. They placed that person there. They paid that person to be there. They do that a lot here. So I'm in the hospital room, and I'm requesting, you know, I'm telling them like, hey, I'm here for chest pains, my throat, and my knee is messed up. And I asked, you know, them to test me and things like that. So they, you know, it was weird. They put the IV in my arm. A brand new IV, so there's no way it could be jammed or anything. I literally only had the IV in my arm for like 2 minutes. And so they pushed me back into a room where I was completely by myself in room E. And nobody else was back there. And then when I pointed out the fact, like, hey, why isn't, like, I'm the only person here except for a guy who was sitting in the hallway in a chair watching me. Just sitting there in the hallway watching me. And, you know, the nurse comes in, and when she comes in, I'm not under anything to monitor my chest or my heartbeat or anything like that to support my knee or anything. I'm just laying here in a bed, not connected to anything. The nurse comes in and she has these 2 big tubes, you know, of what should have been sodium chloride, but it wasn't. You could tell it wasn't even clear. It had like a little frosty color to it, and she takes this tube, and it's full. It's a big tube, and she injects it into my veins really fast, just swoosh. In my veins, could have bust my veins, you know. And right after she did it, she takes the the smaller needle, and she pulls just a little bit of blood out. It was more of that liquid in my blood than it was actual blood. And just a little bit, just one. And she injected more of that clear stuff. Then right after she took my blood, she injected more of that clear stuff into my veins. She injected more of what should have been sodium chloride in my arm than she drew blood. And so at that time, I started to feel uncomfortable, and my arms started to ache. The nurse also, you could see her walking out with a bag and getting inside of a deputy's vehicle with my blood in the bag. That they had no search warrant to getting, or no type of warrant to take my blood or have access to my medical history or anything whatsoever. So then you have guards walking around and taunting me and making fun of me. You know that they're in here and that, you know, they've been watching me. So I didn't feel comfortable, so I refused service at that time. I was like, I don't want to get any. My arm was hurting really bad, so I was like, hey, this thing is hurting my arm. You know, take it out. No, leave it in. So I took it out of my arm. You might want to be careful with that because you might bust your heart. Why would I bust my heart by removing an IV? Unless you put drugs or something in there. So I was like, at that time I was ready to go. I refused treatment and I was just ready to leave, which is my right. But then she comes and she flashes this letter in my face and goes, oh no, you're being held here involuntarily. It's already been signed by the doctor. And it's like, why am I being held here? For psychiatric evaluation. We're going to have a psychiatric hospital come and contact you. So I lay down, I'm like distraught. It's like, what? So I'm laying there, and then the security guard keeps coming back. And I said, well, I'm calling the police. Let me see the phone so I can call the police. He told me I am the police. I am the police, and if you call the police, you're going to get me. Okay, so I'm laying there, and he's like making comments like, oh, it's only one way to solve this situation, and he points his finger like a gun at me, and then he's standing there and he's licking his lips at me, and things like that, and I was just out of it. So it was a bad situation, and we did get into a scuffle. And at that time, right after we scuffled, he goes, oh, we're calling the police. Wait a minute, when I said that I wanted to call the police, you said that I couldn't call the police because you were the police and I would get you. But now, since this is you disrespecting me, you want to call the police, you can, like, it was, so I went to jail. And then when I went to jail this time, they booked me as soon as I got there and threw me in medical with a paper towel gown on, and it just kept ripping and things, and like my vagina, my backside and everything was exposed, and it was so cold, and I was shivering, and I would ask for toilet paper and they would say no, and I would ask for a new gown, which, you know, you should get one every new shift, and they would say no. And then finally they gave me this green vest thing to put on, and I asked if I had a bond. They said no, but I had a court date for May the 4th. And then later on, I was just like, you know, it's okay, you know, I'll get through this. That would have been exactly 11 days in jail. And so I was like, it's okay, I'll get through this. And so, but later on that night, later on that next day, they came and they arraigned me, and the judge pre-trial released me, and the officer was disappointed because he was like, oh, he ordered any pre-trial released her. But so, you know, and they let me out late at night, and I was OR'd earlier that day, and they let me out probably about 2 o'clock in the morning by myself to walk home. So it's been a very horrific, isolating, because violating situation. And like I said, you know, this guy has abused his power, and he's he's using the media and his influence to make this like it's okay or it's normal, and it's not. They say things like, oh, I'm a prince, and here I am, this ugly, fat, broke black girl with a gap, and I'm 40 years old, and so who is she? Who are you? That's what they say. Who are you? And things like this, and he might go around and act as if like, oh, he's sorry, or he has a heart, but they're still here, and they're still doing this to me. Like I said, I am on probation, a 6-month probation for non-emergency 911 calls. You can watch the video and you will see how I was so ecstatic, and I have other video clips in my phone of different things that were going on. You could tell that there was something going on here. And so I was arrested for non-emergency 911 calls, which it was in fact an emergency. And then after being arrested for I am in risk of violating arrest for non-emergency 911 calls, for being arrested for disorderly conduct, for contacting the police to tell them that I found cameras inside of my home, and to request a police report against the maintenance man who inserted the cameras inside of my home. They arrested me instead. So I am at risk of being violated and going to jail for 2 wrongful arrests. I am alone and I don't know what else to do, so I'm here making these videos, trying to highlight to you what's going on. The police are aware of the situation. They know what's going on here, and they are not doing anything to help me. They are actually working against me. My rights and I have just been violated in the worst sense, and it is under the influence of the King of Wales, King Charles. And the same things that I need you to consider, that the same things that I am here telling you about today that are happening in my life are the same things that Princess Diana also explained to you, and you didn't hear her, and he killed her. And then, so I'm explaining to you that this man is doing these things to me right now, in my life right now. And they're gonna try to manipulate you and make it seem like it's because of my color of my skin, but it's not. After investigating and looking into their country and the state of their country, they're killing more white women, children, and men than they are black women, children, and men. It's because he's a greedy, self-centered murderer. He got away with murder before, so he thought to do it again. My crime is wanting positivity and not wanting to be reflected as a whore in the movies and TV screens. And her crime was falling in love with a slime bag. So, I need help. I need help. So if it seems like, hey, I'm at the hospital, complain about the hospital today or the police station today, just know, or events that happened in court or whatever, just know that this man has bribe justice. He has been allowed to bribe justice, and he's paying these people to help carry out these crimes. So I just wanted to share that with you, so that before I go further, you know what's going on. Originally my goal was positivity. you are going to start seeing a lot of negative things, because I want you to understand the character of these people and who these people really are, outside of the hello, how are you doing today, oh, you look fascinating, oh, I love you. Outside of this, going around shaking hands and greeting people and smiling and taking pictures with children and things like that in public, I need you to understand the character of these people and who they really are. They are adulterers, they are murderers, they are drug addicts, they are prostitutes, they are hookers, they are these things that they tried to make me out to be. And that's why they don't have respect for women, because if they did, then they wouldn't be here. And you'll see Prince Williams licking his lips and rubbing on his chest and his stomach, or looking down at his chest and things, and he acts as if he's supporting me, or he wants me to come up, or wants me to be successful. But he wouldn't do those things if I said I didn't like those things. He wouldn't still be here raping me, and parading around like nothing's wrong, or as if he had a heart for me. If he really cared, he wouldn't do those things. He's a married man who I have no romantic interest in whatsoever. The reason I'm in this situation is because I rejected his disgusting ways. They're adulterers. They're just like their father. And I need help. And he's bigger than me and better than me, and he's richer than me, and he's a prince and he's a king, and I'm just a girl. I'm just a poor black woman with no money, no friends, no family, no nothing, and no justice.